Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7 o'clock. I call this meeting of the General Government and Public Safety Committee to order. Please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have comments from citizens. Hearing none, I close that portion. Moving on to public safety. City prosecutor, any reports? Fire department activity report. You have that in your packet. Any questions?
What was the commercial vehicle that was on the fire calls?
Maybe the trash truck or the commercial vehicle, trash truck.
All of them.
Oh, that's right.
Part of them.
Should have been 12, yeah. Any fire department other?
I'll let her hand you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm still struggling with the Missouri Department of Fire.
I'll bring it over first thing in the morning.
That's all right, yeah, their lady wouldn't call, she call state fire marshals, always hang on to your ear for holds, because that's what you're gonna get. Put you on hold.
It won't take me more than a couple minutes.
Yeah, they said they had an opening though for this weekend, so. But I had to talk to the correct person, and then the correct person is there, so.
Okay.
The fireworks training? Okay.
It's the state certification
Yeah,
for.
not only should go get certified this weekend.
Anything else for fire department? Moving on to police department activity reports in your packet. Any questions? Hearing none, moving on to animal impoundment fees. Chief, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, sir. One reason why I bring this up, it calls for a political decision, I guess. Just occurred to me that just get slammed with animal calls. And my numbers guy, Bob Bias, I had him look it up. 6/4 of 12, we had 52. 6/4 of 12. Doesn't sound like minutes. 6/5 of 13, we had 93. Just almost double, just seemed like every time we turn around, we got an animal call. Which is labor intensive, and if you were to say to me, well, that's part of what you all do, that, no dispute, that's what we do. But sometimes I think maybe we get taken advantage of. Or, if I screw this up, then help me. Our impound fee right now is $10. Your dog gets loose, we pick it up, it's $10. The board, to board it for that, if it goes out there, there's another $10 for board, right? So there's $20.
That's works.
It's all right. So, at first thought, maybe we should just talk about this at council. James will report on it in the paper and some anybody will read that and think, oh, they're serious about that. My other thinking is that probably won't be a corrective enforcement tool. But I'm telling you, it just seems like that's labor intensive. Now, I'm not a dog or an animal hater, but a lot of these, I don't know how to say this other than just my way. This isn't Denny Russ's dog getting out once a week, or once in a lifetime that we call and say, hey, Denny, your dog's out. Come here. Okay. This is, we know Jim Lee's dog by name because we have to go get it 3 or 4 times. And then people will pay, they'll come in to go bond their dog out. I just sometimes think, maybe if we boosted that a little bit, I know politically, folks will say, oh, but it gets rather labor intensive after a while.
So you do have owners that are habitual offenders, so to speak?
Yes.
I kind of suspect that $10 a pop is not, probably doesn't cover the cost of what it takes.
It don't cover the cost of fuel for one.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, it's probably pretty low.
Well now, and Lynn can help, I know just enough about this to be dangerous, but Lynn can help you out with it. If we take a dog in, I'm taking completely every syllable of this for gospel. If we take a dog in now, and no one claims it, we now have to take that dog and get it rabies shot. We have to take it to the vet. It has to be cleared to the vet. And that comes at an expense too. I think it's 20 or 25 bucks for an office call.
And they don't pay for that. If they come get their dog out, they don't pay for that.
If they come, if it's your dog and you come and get, no, that's only if I have to take it to the Humane Society.
If it's unclaimed, we take it to Humane Society. They won't take an animal that hasn't been at least rabies vaccinated.
And that's a change from
Yeah,
about the last 6, 8 months, whatever it was. Because they were having to pay for it down there too. So,
now, the local vet is very understanding and doesn't charge us a whole lot. And, doesn't happen to every animal. If an animal is claimed, then it's sort of a gotcha. You get your dog back or your cat back when you can
yes,
show us that you're taking it out to the vet and having it spayed, neutered, or pay the higher license fee, show us it's been vaccinated, and
yes.
then we'll release it. We're contingent on that being
Yes.
done. So then the owner gets to pay that fee. But if it has to be taken to Humane Society, which is the only lawful way we can dispose of animals.
Absolutely, we can't. We've destroyed one dog since I've been chief that I can recall. I could be wrong on this, but we've destroyed one dog, and I say we. I took it out there, and we took it out there. It was a terrible fight. It was a fight all the way. I'm lucky we didn't get anybody bit. But Dr. Farmer did. Outside of that, we've been very fortunate not to have to destroy an animal, because that's not the kind of thing you want.
Do we have any fees on what other cities charge?
I have no idea, really. I think I have no idea.
I mean, I know that the Humane Society has upped their fees to us in the last few years, and we've had to pass that cost along.
Yeah.
But, you know, $10 doesn't sound like a whole lot. And if people are habitual about it, maybe upping it would make them a little less habitual about it.
Well, that's where I have issues with the habitual.
Rather, we're just gonna be making more trips to Columbia.
Yes, now that's part to consider too, because we've had them in the past.
You're not gonna haul the same dog to Columbia twice, are
Well,
Not likely.
Not likely.
that's true. We've had a few instances of people, what we find is folks move,
You leave your dog?
undo their dogs,
Wow.
and then we had, with no way I mean, all that's on us. That's, now, are you gonna recover any of your money there? No. But sometimes I just think we get taken advantage of. Our little old pound is 4 dog stalls. And then I think she's got, I don't know, 8 or 10 cat cages there. And all that too has to be inspected, and it's just part of what your city taxes go for, it's all part of it. I'm not, again, it just calls for a political decision, maybe what we ought to talk about. Lynn will have to tell you the ins and outs about it if we do raise it, how we go about that, I know nothing about
Charge
it.
for service, I haven't confirmed with Merit, but I believe we do not have to have any Hancock collection on that. It's just a penalty we can pass through by ordinance. It's not overwhelming yet, I mean, it's still less than 1 animal a day. We have better things to do, and frankly, I think it's still the case that you get more calls in the evening once they know Sandy's gone home.
It is, exactly.
Then you have to task an officer rather than code enforcement officer to go and pick it up.
Which only makes sense, more folks are home around the place mowing or whatever, and then neighbor's dog's out, like it is Monday through Friday, only this time you'll call, you just, darn it.
Or do we do a sliding where it's, I get something, someone messes up and the dog gets out, kind of thing. Versus this is your 5th time now. So
Yes.
do we graduate a scale of where it's more expensive the more often they have this occur?
We did something like that once.
I think we did.
We did, Sandy talked about that once.
Let me go get the code book.
I think it would certainly be worthwhile looking at what some of the other cities are charging and doing on that, but I kinda like the sliding scale.
Is it mainly dogs or cats too?
Both, yes, I wouldn't be, I couldn't tell you one over the other, really. Dogs, seems like,
Hell, the cats are wild.
they're just wild.
I think if we-
Quite frankly.
Well, could we
somebody-
stop that by stopping that lady that goes around feeding cats all over town?
Well, we've had that conversation in here before you got on the council.
I mean, over there by Centennial Park, I went by there the other night on the golf cart,
Yes,
and there was 30 cats next to the people's house.
yes,
Yeah.
and at some point,
Hamilton?
no.
You talking about out here southwest of town?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got cages for the feral cats.
The cats just sit there waiting on it.
And at some point, that becomes my problem, our
Exactly.
problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. I admit to you that sometimes I see a cat and think, I see a kangaroo because we don't have an ordinance against kangaroos. But that's me.
But I would like to put a stop to that.
Me too. And we've had that conversation in here. I wish I could remember what, that's when we were having that conversation. Well, you were here.
What, she tried to get us to pass an ordinance allowing feral cats.
Allowing feral cats.
And
we said no.
we said no.
A cat calling. Yeah, we didn't want anything to do with it.
I mean, we didn't, demand more enforcement and clean the cats out, but we refused to go along with her idea of, oh gee, these are great animals and we should allow all this.
It's, we talked about that even in the squadron. If we ran around and picked up 10 cats, and there's another $50. Yep, because you can't do the wrong thing.
And
We can't do the wrong thing. You just can't. But I don't want to take up a bunch of your time, but I do think it's worth thinking about, and, because it does seem labor intensive.
Well, and then my thought is, if you have habitual offenders, I think we need to make some.
I think we're good about, if we see dog, I'm gonna say it, that's dangerous stuff. I think we're good about calling and saying, come get your dog before I do. Oh, okay. This dog we were chasing around the other day,
That boxer.
yes. That was rather labor intensive the time we got that thing lassoed. Let me tell you, it didn't like it a little bit. It took a couple of us on the end of that catch pole.
Pretty shifty, yeah.
And my thinking is too, If we get a guy bit, there's a work comp injury, that can just go on and on.
It could be public safety. I mean,
Yes, or we can't get caught, bites a kid.
Of course, we could always add in there that vicious animals,
Well, we got the vicious.
We got the dishes.
but I mean, that they get charged more for picking them up too.
But it has to be determined a vicious dog first.
does the dog work?
Bites an officer, I think, would be called vicious.
That's not it.
Impoundment fees are flat per day, but a quick reading of this, and I would defer to Merritt otherwise, is that if you go ahead and issue a ticket and they appear before municipal court, then there's a rising
Yes.
schedule of fines.
Yes, that's how we handle that.
But we don't give tickets to most people, we just charge them to the
We have started a little uptick in that of recent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That perhaps is the first step, is to be more aggressive in issuing tickets, because at least the inconvenience of having to come to court.
And then it's documented real
Yes.
well
Yes,
for the individual.
we try to write those summonses, you know. But sometimes I think we'll get taken advantage of on that initial 10. Yeah, it'll be, I don't know. I don't think you can raise it $5 and get your point across. But you might be able to raise it $10 each to get your point across. That's just something for you to think about. I appreciate it.
The current, if you go to court, the current fine is minimum of 25, not more than 500, and I know the judge will never go more than a minimum.
It's generally.
But the second instance, within 2 years is $50. The third, within 3 years is $100. So we're getting up into the range where we can't go any higher anyway.
Right.
Well, that ratchets up pretty quick, so
Yes?
it sounds to me like we could possibly go up 10 initially, and then you need to start writing tickets to habitual. Or,
I'm surprised one or two of you haven't heard something about those summonses. I've had enough of it. You can't tie an officer to go get David Wilkins' dog every day. We're not doing it.
It's just being a babysitter. Just being a babysitter.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So it's $10 on the initial, when we pick it up, there's $10. And it's $10 the first night or the first 5 minutes when we board the thing. Maybe we'll give some thought. This is just me. 20 and 20.
Well, it ought to be
20
more.
and 20 total.
You ought to at least break even if you gotta take the humane society, and they charge you 25.
Well, there's 25 at the vet fee before you get out of his office.
Yeah. And you haven't even,
Yeah.
I mean, how long do you keep them out there before you,
5 days,
5 days?
5 days.
sometimes longer, just you gotta have a threshold number to make it worthwhile to take them
And
down.
it's $10 a day?
Yeah, yes, sir, $10 a day. But he's right, she won't go for just one animal.
Yeah.
I think we gotta look at it, but I certainly think that $10 fee is worth considering raising it.
The daily or
Yeah,
the,
the daily.
the initial?
Well, either, or both.
Both.
I think that,
Yeah, both.
A fee has to have a nexus with expenses to get around Hancock, but you can certainly do that with just the amount of time it takes to pick up the animal and take it out. The pound is gonna be more than $20 worth of labor.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, is I think that it ought to be, well, I'm not sure we'll ever make it a break even, but it certainly ought to be somewhere better than what it is now.
We'll never get to the threshold where we're making money on it.
No,
I don't think
Well,
we'll
that's
ever
the
get to where
purpose.
we're breaking even.
well, but it's not trying to be a revenue generator, we're trying to
Just
get
trying
people to take more personal
recoup our
responsibility.
costs.
You know,
If you can't get rid of that animal, there's a $25 office fee before anything else happens. If we take, just something for you to consider.
What are your feelings? Because we're gonna have something for next week to vote on.
I wouldn't recommend trying to get it done by next Monday.
Okay.
I'd suggest that Merritt and I put her, do our research,
Okay.
have an ordinance for this committee meeting next month, and then you can adopt in July if you so choose.
Okay, great.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other police department? Anyone else? Okay, moving on.
Yeah, can we talk a little more about that, cat lady around town next month? Can you put that on the agenda? To see what we can do about that?
Call it something different than that.
I would appreciate that. About,
We're talking about
The cat colony and the
The
field.
cat-
the feral cats, not the person who's feeding cats at her back door,
No,
which we trap.
and then it cost us $25.
The neighbors appreciate the effort. Okay, yeah, we can talk about feral cats next month.
Okay, thank you. Emergency management.
I have nothing to
I
report.
appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Protective inspection.
Okay, let's see. Mrs. Jaeger's house is down and cleaned up. She assures me the barn will come down in the next 30 days. Mrs. Otmo has the old house at the end of Central Street that used to belong to Eleanor Lines. It's down and cleaned. There are 2 portable storage sheds, one of which may be sold quite quickly. Melody Kemper has completed demolition of the house over just around the corner of Coulter off of Bruton. I haven't seen anything else happen to the Crump Donaldson house on North Allen since they put a lot of effort in the first day, and then it's kind of not a lot of rapid
I
response.
probably wondered how they're gonna get their truck out.
Perhaps.
It's stuck in the backyard.
Mr. Romine has taken the house down and mostly filled up the old basement, sort of, where Bill Metter lived, and while he hasn't removed all of the brush and concrete, he has taken out a building permit for the first of what will be likely 5 houses along that street in replacement. So we are now up to 9 housing units for the year. I have issued a permit to Casey Calhoun to demolish the house that was destroyed by fire on South Allen. Perhaps the most important permit I've issued is a remodeling permit to Russ Green for the work on the building on Railroad that used to belong to Mr. Metter. The plans have been submitted and are being reviewed, and that will be to refurbish that building for apartments upstairs and retail commercial downstairs, and it's probably the most important thing in the way of protective inspection I've seen come down the pike in a long time, saving that building and putting it back into productive use. We have a little bit of trying to cut some excess tin off of the wall at 105 North Allen. Otherwise, the ceiling is all done. Got a couple blocks to take up, and will be ready and available. And the ad that will be in Wednesday's paper, plus a very short identification of what we would like in a request for proposals to acquire that property should be in your council packet. And at next Monday's meeting, I'd like to request the mayor to appoint a small committee to review those and then make a report back to you folks. Don't anticipate a lot of response, but more global will depend on that. I'm also going to ask the mayor to appoint a committee to review architectural proposals in response to an RFP for remodeling some bad points of City Hall, dealing with ADA issues, both in City Hall, the police station, and the gazebo. That's a little bit more involved. I had talked to Alderman Borman and identified at least 2 architectural firms. I finally pulled the plans for the police station, and that was done by yet a 3rd architectural firm. And I'll talk to Donna about making inquiries with them about whether they want to be included. Those submittals would be targeted for the end of the month, and sometime next month we'll make recommendations, and have had a chance to do the negotiations. And I'm informed by Mr. Harris that they will soon be submitting a final plat for phase 3 of Southwest Country Estates. It's a cul-de-sac coming south from Countryland Drive. It would have 14 lots. Some of the utilities are already in there. Let the utility foreman know about that project so they can start making sure they have enough materials on hand. And I do not know from Boyd yet whether they're going to do all of those and then submit the final plat, or come up with financial assurances and then come for the final plat. But that should be in the relatively near future.
Okay.
That's a lot of protective inspection.
There you go. Nothing from De La Rosa's.
Mr. De La Rosa had a class for the first 3 days next week. He will be present on July 1st for the committee meeting.
James has a question.
Pardon me, for clarification purposes, sir, about the gazebo, are things that are public structures, like a park structure like that, they are not, it's not possible for them to be grandfathered in regarding ADA improvements, or?
It is, but I don't think that building, the plans I have say 1990, and therefore it was built after the federal regulations went into place, and probably should have included a ramp feature of some sort, but did not. So we're stuck 25 years after the fact with retrofitting.
Thank you, I thought it was older than that for some reason.
Well, we've put in since I've been here, and because when I got here in '85, we had, remember, the real high hedge around the whole park, and it was very lumpy and had ponds in it and everything else. And so when we did the gazebo, it was part of a more encompassing project to take out the hedges. We brought in hundreds of truckloads of dirt and leveled and seeded, and then put in those fancy sidewalks.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to general government and finance, economic development. Craig?
Good afternoon. There's not a whole lot different than what the report is. And we had Gabe Martinez attend our meeting from Angel Insurance Company. They have since joined, and he is interested in working on a couple of things with us, so that was good. The Centralia tour, Centralia Live tour, or the Centralia, I should say, is alive and well, and doing some tours. And we appointed 3 new people for the Purchase with a Purpose committee. And my understanding is they're working to make introductions to the chamber board of directors and work with them on that, on those projects. Our website has kind of stalled a little bit, so we're revamping that. I did have a discussion with the web administrator today, and he's assured me that we'll continue. We've got quite a bit of updates that need to happen with that. The welding program is on track. Haven't heard any more about the solar panel project. The Columbia dinner train, we did have a total of 51. It came down on a Sunday train for Anchorfest. And talk a little bit about that. Kind of the roadblock to that all along has been transportation from the train to whatever. And we only had a few blocks to go. And it took us 3 weeks to find out the insurance situation for school buses, because that was really the only option we had at the time with the amount of time we had to deal with. The school buses, my understanding is they're in the business of transporting students. They're not a contracting agency, so we'll have to find some other way to do that. So looking ahead at Anchorfest next year, I think the dinner train, taking for granted that they're still in existence, the only reason why they wouldn't be, would be very interested in expanding that program for our next Anchorfest. And then we also have the Civil War enactment in September of 14. That would be a really good opportunity for that. Possibly the barbecue, but again, the bus transportation is an issue. So if anybody's got any ideas, we're certainly open to that. But I doubt if we're going to be able to.
Hey Barry, this is Tim.
Yes, Tim.
I've got some ideas. I would like to talk to you about that. I don't know if I could check a bus out from work or something like that. I'm gonna have to do some legwork and see if I can't work somehow like that.
Okay.
We'll get together and talk in the next week or two. Okay?
All right, appreciate that.
Okay.
So anyway, that's kind of been the whole with that all along, and the school system was gracious enough to, we used two buses, so that was good. We have a new intern that's also started, and we have opened up a space and have phone and internet and an office space at Boone County Bank. So Ryan has started. I think he's been working a little bit with the city on the e-service program, and then he'll have some things that he'll be able to work out for that office there. So, do you have any questions or anything?
What about the church buses?
Well, if the train's loaded, there's 216 people. So the intent is not to keep people waiting. So as soon as we get one bus loaded, another one pull up and load, another one pull up and load, to be able to get them all and not have to wait for the bus to make a trip and come back. So, not saying that couldn't be used, but we had thought about that. The problem was that a lot of the churches were already using their buses during the Anchorfest, and I saw quite a few church vans and big, like those airport buses from some Columbia churches that came down. So, whatever can be done, but that is, 216 people if the train's loaded. It would take that many buses. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the park board.
We have their minutes and agenda of the last meeting.
Any questions or comments? Cemetery board.
For once, we have a little bit of a report from Phyllis. In this case, the results of collection during the Memorial Day holiday, which is, except for bequests and wills, is almost the only time that there is a general donation fundraiser going in the cemetery. This is, Phyllis says, up slightly from the previous year, although it's certainly not up to what historically we used to get a decade or more ago. It's still all welcomed and helps us not have to use tax monies to maintain the cemetery. Given current low interest rates, we have implemented the ordinances for the higher lot fees and grave digging fees. And there is some discussion going on dealing with the avenue flags to see what they can do to ease the wear and tear on the flags, because we've been unfortunate that the last few times we put up the flags, it's been pretty terrible weather, heavy winds, rains. When they get their recommendation together, we'll forward it to you.
Okay. Tree board?
Do not have any report.
Library board, I see it's in the packet. Their meeting tomorrow. Any questions? Moving on to me, financial statements. Information's in your packet.
Bills, I mean, Heather noted Bill hasn't gone over them yet, but I have, we only have 2 months into the fiscal year, so I would not say that we are able to spot any trends. There are some annual extra personnel costs associated with Anchor Fest. The April-May sales tax was down slightly over target, but we've already gotten the June sales tax distribution, and it brings us back up to being right at target.
Great.
So revenue is okay. And I don't think there's anything else at the moment that is particularly notable.
Okay. Next is bills over $1,250. It's the very last page of your packet. Any questions? Other general government, Centralia, excuse me, protested taxes.
You may have picked up on this from articles in the Tribune. CenturyLink, besides just phone service, has several other services in its bundle, some of which order on computer services rather than actual voice conversations, and/or providing cable television service, which is, all those two are subject to the gross receipts taxes. Part of their bundled services, they are alleging, don't fall under the definitions allowed by our ordinances or other cities' ordinances or the state. It's similar to all the other arguments we've had with various phone providers, and in all the other cases in the past, we have reached settlements where basically they agreed that they would collect taxes, and we agreed we wouldn't go farther back 6-7 years and say, you may not have collected this from your customers, but you still owe it.
Sure.
Still in litigation. We're being represented by the same people that represented us in the past. They have submitted to the court. We're not alone. This is us and Columbia, and I believe Ashland also too. So, and there are another 150 or so cities out across. We have to be careful about staying with this, because anytime we relent, it's a crack in our armor, and they'll get their foot in the door, and pretty soon they'll be doing what they've tried to do in this current legislative session, which is say that we can't even control who's doing what on our power poles.
Sure.
We may have lost that battle, but they just do not like regulation of any sort, and anything that gives them a competitive advantage on competitor, even for a few months, is something they're trying real hard to do. I'll keep you apprised, but this may drag on for a few months.
Okay.
At the moment, the impact is not great for February, March, April, and May. We're looking at about $2,500 total. It's running about $6.25 a month. Between $6.25 and $6.50, $600. So it's not insignificant, but compared to the overall fees we collect for grocery receipts on phone and cable providers, it's a minor portion.
Moving on to other.
Okay, I mentioned already that the RFP for the sale of the property, the ad is done in the paper, and I would anticipate getting responses back. They'll have to come to me for a more detailed list of what we want in the response, but I think it'll be easily managed. I would like to publicly acknowledge the work that James Hollis did. If you take a look at the table that has the Avenue of Flags index and material on it right inside the front door, he took that, refinished it, did some carpentry work so it's much sturdier, and it looks brand new, and it's wonderful, and he did it in about 2 days with no expense to the city, and we're glad.
Absolutely.
And lastly, well, 2 things. Commissioner Patterson? Yeah. Don? Yeah.
Oh,
The new commissioner, is it Patterson?
no, Janet Thompson.
Thompson, okay, I'm sorry. Sent us an email a week and a half ago. Union Church Cemetery doesn't apparently have anybody tending to it, and she was looking for assistance, and I guess has been out with her own tractor doing some mowing. We tried to see if the Boy Scouts might want to take that on as a project, but they don't have anybody currently old enough to use power equipment, including a lawnmower. Can you believe that? Yes.
Since it's 18 and they are out of scouts at 18, it becomes a problem.
It becomes a big problem. They really do need somebody to mow regularly, and for an initial strike at it, there are also a bunch of volunteer trees that are growing up in the grave spaces and they need to be taken out. I guess it's been quite some time since anybody's dealt with it. So Bella suggested we might try to get one or more of the other civic organizations around here to deal with it. It started as our neck of the woods more than anybody else's neck of the woods, but I can't recommend we use any city resources given the state of the finances for the cemetery. So if James wants to put a mention in.
Where's this church?
Union
Where's the
Church
cemetery?
Road,
And JJ.
yeah.
You know where it is, you get that.
It's down near where Lynn Richmond's house is. It's probably about half an acre.
Southwest of Centralia.
Yes.
I'm guessing it's probably a little more than that. I just really don't know for sure.
Can't be more than an acre.
Yeah, I suspect it might be more like an acre, maybe 3/4 of an acre or something, but it's been a while since I've taken a look at it either.
Yeah, there's no money on that, or they just want somebody to take care of it? They want to pay somebody to do it?
They're not wanting to pay, I'm sure.
I think it's, I'm not for sure, but I suspect it's a cemetery that no longer has anybody tied to ownership or maintenance, in which case it devolves to the county, as I understand state statute. But the county doesn't have a fund set up for cemeteries either, so
church there at one time, that took care of that one there.
Well, Union Church, one would think they would be.
But the church is no longer there, and hasn't been.
Been there for
Years.
Yeah.
How big a
50
cemetery
years.
is there, you know?
An acre.
Look, we were trying to,
Probably an acre.
certainly not more than that. And it's not, it's not full up. I mean, there's
Right.
at least a quarter of it in the front that's totally bare,
That you could mow or?
that you can mow. Well, that one has been mowed a little bit easier, but you got trees growing up right next to headstones, and it could use some TLC.
I could spray, everybody knows what happened.
No, even when the trees dry, you still have to remove
I'm gonna
them.
say, 30 years ago, there were gravestones that the edge of the trees had grown out, and there were Civil War graves and stuff. Did it?
We're just trying to get the word out if there is a group that might want to take on that as a project.
It's hard. You don't get free work anymore.
True.
All these people always looking for community service,
So it's,
but,
Well,
yes.
when we get community servants from our court, which is few and far between, they're usually juveniles and they can't use chainsaws either.
And it's the same if they're 35. You put a saw in their hand and then they get hurt, that's on you.
Our workers' comp will cover it,
I know, but
to the extent, but they won't get a very good payout.
I was gonna say, what are they be earning a week with the city, working for the
Not
city?
much, basically cover medical. It will, there's an
We'll get
imputed
lost
labor rate, but
highways.
it's very small. And, speaking of unions, we have a response from our favorite employee union, which basically says that they will accept the last offer I communicated to them, which has the following changes from the current contract. We title it to be a collective bargaining agreement. We will amend the language dealing with what they call dues checked off to clarify that our current policy will still be the current policy. We agreed to furnish health and dental insurance under the same terms as in the last contract through the end of this one. There's no change there, and we agreed to complete a pay survey prior to November 1 for this year, so everybody can know where we stand compared to our comparable cities. Basically, the list that we paid for a consultant to do the last time we did a pay study, which is going on 5 or 6 years ago now. So I will do a little bit of creative typing to make the appropriate changes in the contract, update the dates, and have an ordinance prepared so that you can adopt it and agree to these changes, which is basically the status quo for at least this year. We'll all hold our breath and see what happens with the Affordable Health Care Act that nobody understands.
I have a feeling we still won't go next year.
And there's certain things we're supposed to let our employees know about
Yeah.
by October, but we can't because the state hasn't even finally 100% guaranteed made up its mind whether there's going to be a state market or whether it's going to be deferred to these feds, and I'm not sure the feds are up and running on that anyway. So I don't know what we tell our employees by the deadline. I keep trying to read everything I can, and I get more puzzled every day as it changes.
As may arise. Yes,
I would like to congratulate Dawn on being elected secretary of the Central Missouri MML.
Oh. Is that where the congratulations?
Well, it was noted and I read it and I thought it was worthy of congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Any other Esmeralda?
Yeah, one negative.
Sir?
Phil Hoffman made the question last week about people blowing their grass clippings into the street, not just the occasional first pass down the sidewalk, but intentionally working all the excess clippings into the street. I told him I would bring it up. I didn't know where we stood as far as if that really was, you know, against the rules, if we have any rules right now on that. But he said that they, on multiple occasions, that they will block the inlets to the storm sewers.
Sure.
And to me, it's just really not the right thing to do. So I don't know, I don't think we have an ordinance specifically for that, do we?
Yeah, I think it's a stretch, I'd have to look at it after the meeting, I could.
I just told him I'd bring it up just for discussion points.
I've noticed a number of times recently, it seems to be more prevalent than what it used to be.
I know if you ride a motorcycle, it's not real special.
Yeah, anything that blocks inlets is a severe concern, and there are probably tangential nuisance regulations against distributing such things in public ways, but I have to research the exact language.
Go back to us then.
I will.
Thank you. Any other Esmeralda?
Oh, yeah. What about the church? When are they gonna mow that over there?
Good question. Mayor has been asked again to update and report on it next month.
You mean
They have received notice.
crossing DC, what, up the
Yeah.
street there?
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably mow it as often as they did.
It ought to be mowed. It
Huh?
ought to be mowed, they've got their notices.
Yeah, but there's
It's
no
not
way to
mowed.
do anything.
Well, the sole contact is a guy who's an over-the-road truck driver. I'm not sure how prepared he is to deal with it. Much preferable to find new owners who would tear it down and make it available.
Yes.
Can you tear it down if you were buying today, can you tear it down?
Or
Or
we
is it
can't-
historic?
We
Oh,
can't-
no, it's not historic.
We can't
Right.
just take it over for failure to pay taxes because of the church, they're exempt, so that's avenue is out, unfortunately.
That avenue is out.
And they're a defunct church, how do you go after somebody that no longer exists?
Yeah. Okay.
They've been reincorporated temporarily. They have power to sign over a deed.
Yeah.
If we can get them to sit down and make it available. Point taken, however. Speaking of nuisances, I will let John see this just for laughs. And also acknowledge a citizen complaint on why we keep giving junk car notices when we haven't gotten rid of the burnt trash truck.
Oh, my God.
And it's, on the face of it, it's a legitimate complaint, we're trying hard, they came up to pick it up, but we've discovered that rain caused the back tailgate to fill up with water that was heavily contaminated with oil that we did not want to put on the public streets or our parking lot. So Phil spent some time getting the oil skimmed off to where it was just kind of grody, trashy water that we could dispose of properly. And the oil is all in a barrel, waiting for Safety Clean to pick it up next time they pick up motor oil.
However, I also suspect that the zoning is such that it is not a real problem for us to have.
How many-
No, I think it's under R1.
Oh,
How
is it?
many letters have we sent them for junk vehicles?
Ourselves?
Yeah.
None.
I mean, the people, the person that made the complaint.
It's.
How many years has this been going on for them?
I honestly can't tell you. And I don't really want to, I know who called,
I mean,
but
it's a
it's
little-
still, it's still not the point. The point is, we're trying hard to get rid of it, and it should have been gone last week, but I expected it to be gone today. I think it's still over there.
We'll duly note the complaint.
Yeah, well, transparency.
Yes, absolutely.
Been there a month, and somebody's already complained.
If we're in a position to
Oh,
say.
I think it might
what we
work.
say, not that we do.